Oh my. Hello, party people. Here we are today. Today I am standing because I am enthusiastic today about this book, In 5 Years, by Rebecca Serle. I'm not even going to try, but that's who this is, the book and who it's by. This one is going to be a rant just because I'm going to start it off. I did not like this book. I gave this book, let's say, 2 stars. So most of this is going to be spoilers. I'm just going to go through the synopsis, what the setup of this story, and then we're just going to go into my reasons why this book was not it. The reasons it just didn't slap. So, this book is about a woman who's 28 years old. Her name is Dani. She is in this relationship. I think she's a lawyer. Yeah, I think she's a lawyer. She's in this relationship with this guy, David. They are together. She's very, Dani is very, by the books, does things a certain way. Everything is calculated. Everything is, she's has a lot of control over her life, and probably a controlling person, I guess you could say. So she gets engaged to Dani. It's the night of their engagement. She falls asleep, and she wakes up in 5 years. In her dream, she wakes up in this dream in 5 years, and she's in a different location, with a different person, with a different ring on her finger, a different engagement ring on her finger, and she's kind of what's going on? So she's only there for one night, but it's, completely separate from the life that she's in the middle of, basically. Her 28-year-old self is, the 33-year-old life that she's dreaming about is very different from the 28-year-old real life that she's living, and she's very, bewildered by this entire thing, and then she wakes up in her real 28-year-old self life, and she's back to everything normal, and she's kind of what the heck was that? What did I just experience? Why is that so different from what I'm doing right now? Anyway, and that's kind of it. I mean, I'm not it, but I'm just saying, that's the setup. That's where the reader, the hook is in the book. I will say the hook was in this book. I will give it that much. I was interested. I was that's a cool setup. What's going to happen? Let's find out. So I'm not going to get too far into how she figures out who this person is and whatnot, but what I will say is that Dani is engaged to David, and Dani, the woman Dani, also has a best friend named Bella. And anyway, that's the synopsis. I'm just going to stop holding my tongue because I just want to rant about this book right now. So if you want to read it, go for it. There are many things, not many things, but there are enough things about this book that I do not like. So therefore, I do not recommend it. We're going to get into it. We're going to talk about it. Some people liked it. I'm going to say that. Some people did like this book, so I'm not entirely going to shit on this book. I mean, I am, but I can understand, maybe, I guess. I don't even know if I can understand. All I'm saying is that there are other people that liked this book. So I'm just going to put it out there. It's possible to enjoy it. It's not the worst book I've read. I have lots of feelings and emotions. So anyway, we're going to get into my spoiler review. Spoiler free has ended. Spoilers are starting. So, okay. First of all, what the heck? This book is really predictable. Let's just put it there. It's predictable. They start with what the dream. So I'm okay, so I know where we're going. And the whole time leading up to the 4 years up until, until she's 32, I guess. It's just kind of okay, well, we know she's gonna eventually end up there, so, and she's I'm doing everything I can to prevent that from happening. I'm not gonna be that person. I'm not gonna have that guy, whatever. And it's okay, we get it though. That's what's happening here. So if she didn't really have her life turn into what that dream was, that would be unpredictable, let's say. But that's not what happened. So, okay. It was something I was just going to add to that. But anyway, there were just too many details. I'm just going to really be reading down my list at this point because I have so many jumbled thoughts about why I'm frustrated with this book, so sorry, but I'm going to be. There are too many details that added nothing to the storyline. Also, she was jumping back and forth to references of their past life, oh, when we were younger, we would do this. Me and Bella would do this, or whatever. All these different things, and I'm just okay. I mean, I don't know, maybe it added, but it happened too much, and it wasn't always clear, what was the past and what was the present. I was just, I don't know, unnecessary. The characters were really freaking one-dimensional. No depth. I didn't understand why Danny and Bella were friends. It almost seemed like they were friends just because they were friends as children. Like, I don't know exactly how young they were, but 5, 10 years old, whatever. When they were kids, they were friends. So they just happened to also be best friends up until their 30s. So by the time they were 30, though, they didn't seem like they were super tight. And for them to... Also, just gonna say, people said that this book wasn't about romance. It was about friendship. Where? Show me where it was about friendship, because literally makes no sense. Literally, for example, Bella said to Danny, I don't think David's right for you. I've always felt that way. I've always felt this. That's just one example of, like, if she's your best friend, you wouldn't have waited years and years to finally bring up that you think that they're not a good fit. Like, I can get holding your tongue sometimes because your friend's so happy, but, like, if you can see that they can have a better life and, like, I don't know, there just totally would have been a reason that Bella would have told Danny that Bella didn't think Danny and David were a proper match. Like, that Danny might have been better off with somebody else. Also, if this book is so much about friendship, then what the heck is going on with Danny hooking up with Aaron eventually, right on the day of the funeral? I think it was. I finished this book a few days ago, so I'm not, like, 100%, like, exact on the details and the timeline, but either way, like, one way or another, she, like, immediately hooks up with him, and it wasn't, like, I could also maybe understand if there was some more character development and understanding, but then she was just like, it was about grief. It was grief. It wasn't love. It was grief. And I'm like, okay, no, like, just stop. I mean, I'm not saying that that doesn't happen, but it wasn't interesting enough to me as a reader to be, like, relating in any form or just being like, I can understand. Like, no, it just wasn't. And I was like, how is this about friendship? And I saw reviews, people saying, like, oh, I know some people struggled, like liking this book, but it's really about the message, and it's really about what this says about friendship. And I'm like, so tell me what this says about friendship, because clearly I'm delusional and I missed it entirely. I didn't get it. It didn't happen. Anyway, I do want to give this book a little bit of credit after I'm saying all this. I'm going to give it a little bit of credit because it was interesting enough for me to finish. I did finish this book. I was kind of, like, still, even though it was predictable and I knew she was just going to end up with Aaron anyway, or that the dream was going to come into fruition, I guess you could say, come to fruition. But I still was curious to see how it was going to happen, so I read it enough to let that happen. There was this is literally in caps, I say too much cancer BS, because facts. I don't want to read, this is what I wrote, I don't want to read half a book about someone slowly not dying. It gives me nothing but sadness that I could just get elsewhere that would be more interesting. Like, give me at least a more interesting plot if you're just going to have one of the main characters die for an entire half of the book. Like, just talking about her dying, her cancer, and I'm like, okay, this is just freaking sad. Like, I don't know. And some people are fine with that, but I am not a cancer reader. That shit's, like, too real. And I know that we read about real shit every day, but, like, I don't know. If somebody has cancer and it's going to help the plot, then fine. And I guess it did help the plot, but I'm just saying, they just dragged us. The author dragged that so hard. And I'm like, okay, she's dying. All right, another thing. It was totally overdramatic. So much of this was overdramatic. I was like, well, what are we getting at? Also, I don't even know if this is true, but I saw another reviewer say it, and when I was reading it, I couldn't entirely understand. But is Danny supposed to end up with the oncologist? Like, there was a really weird implication at the very end of that when she ran into the oncologist in the bagel shop or something, I think, where he was like, yeah, I'll be seeing you. Or I don't even know if that's exactly what it was, but there was something weird about how I was like, are they trying to say that something's about to go down, like, between the two of them? Like, are they vibing? I don't know. I already said this, but yeah, the first half was intriguing, so, like, that made it more interesting for me, and then the second half I had to drop it. Oh, I know I'm jumping around so much right now, but I have so many emotions and thoughts. The other thing I want to say about the fact that this book is about cancer, by the time we got to that halfway point, and it was around then that Bella got cancer, and then, I read it for a little bit. I was like, okay, I don't love that, but if it's just, a little bit of a part of the story, I'll go with it. But literally, the entire half of the book was about this woman having cancer and just, I don't know, it being dragged. Anyway, by that point, I was like, after, like, 30 pages of that, I was like, I can't do this. So I actually listened to the entire second half of the book on audiobook because I was like, I'm not just like actively reading about somebody dying and how she's getting weaker and how she's not as strong and how it's really not going as well as we thought it would. I'm like, okay. Anyway, I'm going to drop that part there. Friendship point didn't make any sense. Okay, so the storyline, boring, underwhelming, could have been way crazier given the synopsis. Like, given the way that was prompted, I think at the beginning, you know, the way I described it, what was probably on the back of the book about she wakes up in 5 years, her life is so different, then she goes back to her main life, and then what's gonna happen? Like, it could have been so much better than this freaking friend getting cancer, and then this person hooking up with her boyfriend. It wasn't even cheating, but I don't know. Anyway. Danny, as a character, boring, unlikable, selfish, controlling. Just a few. That's just a few terms right there we're talking about. This book was extremely slow-paced, and for what? For what? For the reader to be dragged through cancer and a failing friendship. That's what it was for. My opinion. I know, this is just my opinion, and I'm probably, like, over-exaggerating for sure, and embellishing, but that's how I felt. By the time I got to the end of the book, I was like, I got dragged all through this, and why? Then my last point was, like, what was the reader even supposed to learn or gain from this? Question mark, question mark. Done. Okay, so that's it. In 5 years. Read it or don't. I recommend not, but that's pretty much everything. If you liked it, I'm sorry. I don't know. That's all I have to say.